Okay. So today is our 8th class on 11th week. So I owe you 2 class. Maybe we'll do the replacements towards the end of the session. Okay, so for today's class, we are going to cover on pavement marking and road furnitures. So road markings and delineations, the lines and arrows and everything that were painted on the road are used to regulate traffic and warn or guide users. Okay. So they may be used either alone or to supplement other traffic control devices. So usually it is in combination lah with signboards and other devices lah. So all road markings and delineations should be uniform. We don't have any problem with this because we are just a small country. Basically in Malaysia, all states use the same markings. Even the authorities, local authorities also use the same signboards and markings. More or less it is uniform. So the position and application should be easy for the road users to recognize and understood by all road users. So this is being taught by JPJ lah when you are taking your license. So you are being taught the meanings of the signboards and also road markings. So road markings no longer applicable when they create confusion. Okay, when you have too much lines on the road. Okay, so it must be just enough, and it must be clear enough to make sure that the public knows exactly what to do. If you have too much lines, too much arrows, that it creates confusion, so it should be removed. So other road marking required by road conditions should be removed when those conditions cease to exist, meaning that it confuses lah. Okay, you should cancel take off the markings. Markings must also be visible at night, shall be reflectorized unless ambient illumination assures adequate visibility. Okay, unless that the area is constantly lighted. But this is very small exception lah. Normally, all road markings should be reflectorized, meaning that the material that you use to paint the markings must have some illumination qualities. Okay, so for highways, all road markings must be reflectorized. Even on well-lighted town, it is generally desirable markings should be visible at night. Okay, so in simple terms, that we just say that all markings should be reflectorized. If you see some markings that is non-reflectorized, normally it is being painted by building owners, okay, people that do not adhere to road it is within the private developments. For public roads, if it was constructed by the authority or the JKR, for example, it must be reflectorized. So in addition to reflectorized lines, road studs can be used. So these are road studs. Okay, or some people say that cat's eye. Cat's eye actually is the semicircle one. Okay, this one is road studs lah. But in practice it is used interchangeably. Okay. Some people say that road eye, but they are referring to this kind of product. Road pavement may be marked by one or more following materials: paint, thermoplastics, or preformed tapes. Okay, these are preformed tapes. It is being glued to the surface of the road. You can use paint where the paints have maybe, I think, but like glass particles in the paint, so that it will gleam in light. And then for thermoplastics, so these are rubber application that also have reflectivity properties. So all pavement markings shall be white except where it is used in yellow boxes for transverse bar like this, curb marking where you prohibit people to park, parking base for taxis, okay, so on and so forth. So these are some of the exceptions when you need to use yellow paint. So pavement marking are divided into following types: longitudinal, transverse, and other markings. Longitudinal are the lines that is going to parallel with the road. Okay, and you have transverse line that is going across. So longitudinal lines consist of either broken or unbroken line, or combination of both. A broken line is used to separate moving vehicle. There is unrestricted visibility, meaning that you can overtake this type of line, meaning that you can cross this line. A single unbroken line is used where the crossing of the line is discouraged or legally prohibited. So you cannot cross this type of lines. Okay, a single unbroken line meaning that you cannot cross. So double unbroken lines, it depends. Okay. What it says here, if you have two lines, like so lah mana. This one. You are driving on this left side. So on the vehicles on the left side cannot overtake, whereas vehicle on this other side here, their side is broken lines. So this side can overtake. All right. So it can cross the line. Oh, I forgot to inform you. This is the reflectivity meter. It's being used to measure the reflectivity of these lines. I don't have any experience using this machine, but it's good for auditors to have. Normally contractor will have it when auditors come to audit the road. They need to show that the reflectivity of the road lines that they have painted is adequate. Okay. All right. So longitudinal lines consist of center line, lane line, passing lines, so on and so forth. We look over here. So you have urban areas and rural areas, and you have center lines for urban areas. You can see the length of this line. The term that we use is the stroke. The stroke is 1 meter. 1.7 meter is the gap. And then you have the width, 100 mm. This is for center line. If it is unbroken, then you have a straight line here with the same width and multi-lane line road. Okay, the gap between these two lines is 125 mm. And then you have lane lines, which basically is the same with broken lines here for center lines. And then you have unbroken. Edge line is thicker, is wider, 150 mm. And these are continuity lines. So continuity lines are different with lane lines. So it is shorter, the stroke is shorter, 1 meter, and the gap is also 1 meter. And it's also wider at 200 mm. So these are the type of lines typically being used at urban areas. For rural areas, it is more or less the same, but for center lines, you can see the stroke is longer, 4.5 meter, and the gap is 7.5 meters. It also have when the center line, when it is used at mountainous terrain or short radius curve, when your curve is very small, so now the stroke becomes half of the straight line segment. You have 2.7 meters stroke, and the gap is also shorter, 4.5 meters, because it makes it easier for drivers to see the lines. If the gap is too long and the line is too long, and the radius is very small, you can see that actually this 4.5 meters, it seems like it is a straight line because the radius is too small. You cannot see ahead of you. So they shorten the stroke of the lines and reduce the gaps between the lines. And the width stays the same. Okay. No passing zone. continuity lines, 1 meter, same. Okay. So center lines. So these are what we call as center line, what we refer to center lines. It's used to designate the center of the travel part of roadway, carrying traffic in both directions. And lane lines are the lines that is being used to distinguish different lanes on the same side of the direction. Okay. So lane lines are organizing traffic and increasing efficiency. They should be used on all rural highways with 4 or more lanes. What it meant by 4 or more lanes, meaning that like this road lah, that you have here, this is 4 lanes single carriageway. Okay, so when you are working, people say to you that the highway is 4 lane. It's normally referring to 4 lane single carriageway. If this highway has a median in the middle, then it becomes 4 lane 2 carriageway. Okay, carriageway, let's say this is going to the north, this is going to the south, for example. So 2 carriageway, 4 lanes. At approaches to important intersections, crosswalks and dangerous locations, and it also used at one-way streets where maximum efficiency in the utilization of the roadway is desired. One way, we also use lane lines. And then you have no passing zones, meaning that one straight line here, so you cannot pass this line. So this line is used to warn you that you should not cross unless it is an emergency. Okay. So no passing zones shall be established at vertical and horizontal curves. Okay, and also at the center lines here lah, no passing zone where you cannot overtake. All right. Where 2-lane or 3-lane highways where passing is prohibited. Passing or what we say, not what we normally use. The term that we normally use is overtaking lah. So you are not allowed to overtake because of dangerously restricted sight distance or hazardous condition. So no passing zone shall be marked by double continuous white line and combination of continuous or a combination of continuous and broken lines. So no passing zones should not be less than 120 meters. So minimum length of no passing zone is 120 meters. If it is shorter, then people will lose respect to it. Okay, considering to the speed of the highway. If it is shorter, then people will think that they can just quickly overtake and then get into the lane after the no passing zone has ended. Warning arrows, I'm not sure, I don't have any example pictures. So what these arrows meant actually is it is used to warn you when you are approaching double line areas. So you are driving on this side and you see these arrows in the middle, in the center line. So these arrows means that up front there's a no passing segment. Okay, coming up. All right. So maybe if you have any pictures of example of this, then you can show me. I have yet to get any pictures that use this type of arrows, warning arrows. And then climbing lanes. So you can see here, it is using in the middle part here, it is using lane lines. And at the beginning and at the end, it is using continuity lines here, continuity lines. So it starts with continuity lines, and then it becomes lane lines. And then when you are supposed to cross over again, it is continuity lines. So this is the use for continuity lines, that is distinguishing areas where you are supposed to, not supposed like, you can change lane. Okay? You change lane when you're changing more or less changing direction, something like that. Okay. And then you have edge line at the edge of the road here. Okay, so pavement edge line should be 150 millimeters wide. Okay, we normally take this for granted, and sometimes contractors also will try to paint a narrower line. Okay, you just imagine lah, between 150 and 100 mm, you save about 2 inch. Okay, if you didn't check, they save a lot of material painting the road lines just by reducing the size from 150 to 100 mm. So it is used to discourage travel on road shoulders and make driving safe and comfortable. They also act as a pass object which are close enough to the edge of the road pavement to constitute a hazard, meaning that you can see it at the corner of your eyes, okay, so that you know to estimate, you can estimate the distance of your vehicles to the edge of the pavement. So the distance between the edge lines to the actual edge of the pavement is 150 millimeters. So adding the width of the pavement line, pavement edge line, and also the distance between the edge of the pavement to the line, you have 1 feet, 30 mm. So this is an example where the edge line is only 10 centimeters or 100 mm. Okay, so this line should be increased to 150 over here. Okay. Continuity lines, okay, the width is 200 mm, 1 meter stroke and 1 meter gap. Okay, it is being used to indicate the portion of the carriageway assigned to through traffic where it is intended the line to be crossed by traffic at an intersection or leaving or entering an auxiliary lane. So this is an auxiliary lane. So this continuity line is being used to distinguish that this is the area for you to move into this other lane. Same here, the use of continuity lines. And then you have transverse lines, which are across the road. It should be wider than longitudinal line because the narrowing results from the low angle which they are viewed. Okay, this means that because you are actually, okay, if you are driving here, okay, at driver's height, if this line is very thin or similar thickness with the edge line, for example, you can hardly see the line because the angle of your eye looking at the line makes it very narrow. So it is important for transverse line to be wider, okay, wider, so that it's easier for drivers to see the line. Unless you are driving on a lorry or something like that, isn't it? Higher vehicles, but we are taking the height of a passenger car, driver of a passenger car's eye. So they shall be of non-skid materials and protrude 5 millimeters above the level of the carriageway. Normally, the usual height is 5 mm. Okay. Transverse line also transverse bar also is a type of transverse line. So transverse line are divided into stop lines, give way, and pedestrian crossings. Okay. So on top of that, you have this transverse bar where it's supposed to slow down the vehicles. But like I mentioned earlier in our class, in the semester, transverse bar are not supposed to be used at corners because it can be slippery. However, the more recent lines that we call rumble bars, normally the color is red. That one it is acceptable because it is thicker and it has some sort of grainy materials in the line, and the skid resistance is better than the yellow ones. So this is the example of transverse line. It's stop line, okay, broken line here, okay, and also pavement pedestrian crossing. So you have the white one here, edge of this is the edge of the pavement, this is the line, and this is the pavement markings lah. Typically, it is white for pedestrian crossing, but it also can be yellow. Yellow ones normally is being used for pedestrian crossings that have signalized. It is signalized where you can push the button and the crossings and the light will change to red, so then you can cross. That one normally we use yellow pavement marking. For the red, black and white here, white lah, bukan black because black is the road, isn't it? For the white pavement marking is this is the normal zebra crossing where it is not controlled by traffic light. Okay. Cool. Okay, now you have chevron markings or diagonal markings. The important part is here is the angle and the width of the markings and the gaps. And also, you need to make sure that the angle is correct with respect to the direction of the traffic. So you can see the direction this way, then the angle is towards this way. Okay. And for chevron markings, the marking should be against the arrow here should always be against the direction of traffic. So the direction of traffic is this way, so the arrow is pointing to the other way. Similarly for this part, to the other end, direction traffic is to the right here, the arrow of the chevron is pointing to the other side. Okay. This is also useful when you are driving lah. And sometimes you look at somewhere that it is confusing. Where should you what is the direction of the traffic? So this arrow of the chevron here designates the direction of traffic. So this is a very useful diagram. Okay, summarizing the use of lines, different type of lines at an intersection. So basically, using this one diagram, you can understand how the different lines are being used. Okay, so let's have a look here. Number 5, here is a straight continuous line, and number 1 is a broken line. And then you have number 3. Number 3, this is the lane line. And okay, so this one and the edge one here, the other one here is continuity line. Okay, and this is channelizing line. You have edge lines, and then let's see, okay, RM4, tunjuk number 1 and number 2, and then you have number 7. Let's see number 7 over here. Number 7 is edge line at traffic island. Same thing, the width is 150 mm. Number 9 and number 10. So number 9 is stop line, and number 10 is pedestrian line. Continuous 300 mm width. Okay. Okay, so you can refer to this diagram to see how the lines are being used. All right, next is traffic signs. So several types. Okay, we have 3 main types, which is regulatory, warning, and guide signs. So it is being used to either regulate, warn, and guide road users lah. Okay. So it is only be used where necessary and justified by facts and field studies. You cannot simply just put all type of signs everywhere. So that's why in Malaysia nowadays, sometimes you can have a number of people putting their own signs. So it becomes confusing to a certain extent. Okay. So these are the main types, okay, that you will normally see. The type of signs that is not available in this list are the working areas sign. So you can see normally when you are entering construction sites, you have pemindahan tamat, men at work, all those kind of warning signs lah for construction. Those kind of signboard is not available here. But this is the main types that is being used for normal roads. So regulatory signs it can be apa nama, macam ni, hexagonal, circular or triangular, like this. So it can be hexagon, three type of shapes. So here it is a parking prohibited, stop sign, and give way sign. Also, the important part actually is the height of the sign, the critical part. On top of that, you must make sure that the font here is of the right size. It seems that it is a little bit nitpicking, but when you're driving, the size here is very important for you to be able to see clearly. And also the height. Highways has a significantly taller signboard height compared to normal road. Federal road, for example. Federal road is different, the height with local road. Okay, we have different specifications. So you need to check that and make sure that the contractors are actually adhering to the specifications. Okay, so regulatory signs inform road users of traffic laws and indicate the applicability of legal requirements. So this is a life-saving for traffic engineers. You can see that you have put on sorry, the saving one is the warning signs. Okay, so this is very important. It can be useful for traffic engineers when you need to back yourself up lah. If you do not put the right type of signs, then it is possible for road users to actually sue you. But yalah, lawyers can do a lot of things kan. But if it is really confusing design, and on top of that you do not provide adequate signage, and it does not have adequate lighting, for example, then the risk of being sued is quite high. The sign message shall clearly indicate that the requirement imposed is easily visible. So you can, this is where you make sure that the font lah, basically the font, and also the reflectivity. Okay, all signboards should be reflectorized. Okay, not just the road line paintings. Okay, the amount of reflectivity must also be tested, and you need to make sure that it is good. So regulatory signs are also circular in shape, except for berhenti, beri laluan, and zone had laju, speed limit signs. And then you have yellow warning signs, normally are yellow. So it calls attention to hazardous traffic operations. So the shape is a diamond shape. Okay, so here you have uneven road, dangerous ascent, okay, where you have the percentage of the gradient of your road here. Okay. So warning signs are used when it is deemed necessary to warn traffic of any hazardous conditions on the road. So it requires caution, may call of reduction of speed, or maneuver of interest of safety. So this is where you warn the road users to slow down. Like I mentioned in Kajang, where the super elevation of the road is terribly wrong, that it causes accidents and people are dying because of that mistake. Luckily, normally people don't argue with that. So the authorities, they have resorted to put lots of warning signs, okay, warning lights, and then they put lots of rumble bars and speed limits, all of the signs. And also they put median, the concrete barriers in the middle of the road, not middle of the road lah, at the median part. So they try to make sure that they don't get sued lah, because they can say that, okay, we have already provided the signage, we have already provided enough lighting, we have provided rumble bars. So if you still drive at a apa tu, very fast lah, elevated speed, then if you crash, then it's not our fault. Okay, even though the design is wrong, but if you drive according to the speed limit that has been posted, there is no way that you will be facing an accident. So they can see that. Also, road users is very difficult to counter that kind of argument lah, because they have done lots of things to avoid people from driving too quickly on that road. Next part is the guide signs. It shows designations, destinations, directions, points of interest, so on and so forth. So guide signs will have the arrow lah. The important part will have the arrow. Okay. Alright, so guide signs are generally classified into 4 parts: directional or destination signs, or it can be distance signs, where it has the distance, how many kilometers for you to reach Seremban, for example. Directional, it has, okay, turn right to go to Seremban, but it does not have the distance. It also it can be information signs, or it can be route markers. Route markers, I'll show you afterwards lah. This is very rare signboards actually. So the amount of information on any one sign should not exceed 3 destinations. In addition, it must be located as to allow any necessary maneuver to be made without confusion. So 3 in one signboard. Okay, 1 minute. So the size of guide signs is not always dependent on the word or the message or the symbol. In the case of overhead mounted over a particular roadway, mounted meaning that overhead, it is across the road, okay, on top of the road, to which it applies, the size is limited to the length of the width of the lane. Meaning that, ni tadi gambar pula. Alamak. Saya rasa saya dah letak gambar dah ni. I forgot to put the picture over here. It's like okay, let's say here lah. Let's you have a gantry type of signboard post over here. So the signboard here that shows you the correct lane to use to go to certain destination. So the important part is not just the size of the font, but the width. You need to make sure that if you are saying that this lane is going to Seremban, then the width of the lettering should be adequate between according to the width of the lane. So if the lane is 3.3 meter, then the width of the writing is also 3.3 meters, something like that. Meaning, I mean the space lah. You cannot say if this is 3.3 meters, Bangi, you say Bangi is just what, five letter words, BANGI. Okay, so the space for you to write is limited to the width of the road. It's not like you're spreading the word of Bangi across 3.3 meters width. It's not like that. So that is for the overhead sign. On destination sign, an arrow pointing to the right shall be on the extreme right. Okay, if it is pointing to the right, it should be on the right side of the name. Okay, an arrow pointing to the left or vertical shall be on the extreme left, unless there is one direction to turn, in which the case of the arrow may be at the bottom of the sign. Okay, the important part that you must know here, normally the arrangement is counterclockwise, clockwise, sorry. Saya dah lupa. Kenapa saya rasa macam saya salah nota ni? Okay, it is counterclockwise. Saya dah letak sini. Counterclockwise. So you must start the first one here, going straight up. And then the second set going to the left. And then the other set going to the right. For destination that is pointing to the right, the arrow must be on the right. So basically it's like this. Should be located, okay, going straight should be located upper left hand side to indicate straight or go through movement here. If you have something going to the northwest, it should be second. The third one going to the left, the fourth one going to the right, the fifth one going to the northeast. So it will always be counterclockwise rotation. Okay, the way you arrange it. But you should not have in one block here, the maximum is 3. Maximum is 3. Not more than 2 or 3 names should normally be used in combination on one or more sign. As a general rule, the next important town or point lying straight ahead should be on top of the sign. The nearest should be on top. And below it, the next important destinations to the left and to the right. Not more than 4 names should be used in combination, but only 2 names can be used per direction. So maximum 4 in one signboard. Directional lah. For directional signboard, maximum is 4. Okay, this is the straight one going, which is the nearest, and this is the next important town. You cannot use more than 5 in combination. So this is the problem. This is completely illegal, kan? But I'm not sure. Normally, this type of signs are being erected by municipal councils. So it creates lots of confusion. Okay, not only the size is small, and you have what? How many lines here? What, 10, 15 lines of information. With the speed, the traveling speed here, let's say the speed is 60, it is impossible for you to travel and to look at these particular informations one by one in time. You must be traveling by like what, 20 kilometers per hour, goes very slowly, so that you'll be able to see, okay, I'm going to this one here. If you're lucky, maybe you can see, oh, this is my destination, so you can directly see. If suddenly your destination is somewhere here, you need to go one by one at 60 kilometers per hour. It is impossible for you to be able to see the signboard. It will also create hazards for people because you are driving and suddenly you are slowing down just to read at the signboard. So this is silly things lah that people do. So actually for designing signboard, they have this research lah, okay, on the speed limit and the size and how good people see must be, how much is the reflectivity, everything should be standardized. Not simply just erect anything, okay, on the side of the road. All right. And lagi teruk lagi, it is even worse if this signboard is actually covering up another signboard erected by the JKR. See, this one is erected by council, and the other one, it is covering up the other signboard erected by JKR. That is even worse. So destination signs should be generally located at the distance not less than 100 meters and not more 150 meters in advance of the intersection. So 100 meters, between 100 to 150 meters, you should have a destination sign. Okay, ahead of intersections lah. Okay? So they did not give one value 100 meters because of course lah, on site you need some tolerance where you can erect your signboard. And also the distance here will give, if it is standardized, you will have the sense of when you are driving, you see that signboard, you know that the junction is going to be somewhere between 100 to 150 meters. If it's not standardized, some authority use put it 200 meters, some authority put it 50 meters. So people will have difficulty in judging which one is the actual junction, something like that lah. So 3 destination signs in advance of diverging roadway, such as a slip road, and 1 sign at the junction itself shall be provided on all heavily trafficked major roads. And the first advanced destination shall be erected 1 kilometer of the town. The next one is 500 meter away from the junction. And the third sign shall be erected 100 to 150 meters in advance of the junction. Okay. So this is what I've shown you just now, the directional signs. And then you have distance signs. Distance signs should be located at the following locations: 200 meters from a turning roadway, or 150 meters beyond an acceleration lane. Okay, if you merge into this lane, 150 meters, then you can see a signboard. Okay. For distance lah, 100 meters outside the city or municipality limit, and also 20 kilometer intervals around the route. So at 20 kilometers interval, you can see distance sign. So this is just showing you the next town, the next nearest town in order of distance. The nearer on the route destination should be placed on top. Okay, and not more than 5 names should be used in combinations, but only 3 names can be shown per route. 3 names per route. So this is one route and these 3 names. You can have another, let's say this road, route 34 is going to go Musang, Kelakar, Kota Baru. And then you have, let's say you have another road, D something, D102, for example, going to different areas. Then you can have 2 more. So in total is 1, 2, 3, another 2 for another route. Okay. So route, it means that the number, route number lah. Route number over here. Okay. And this is the edge of the 100 meters outside the city of municipality. Tak apalah. Okay. Saya nak tunjuk ni. This is a signboard to designating the boundary of state. This is Pahang, and the other side is Kelantan. Okay. Information signs. So it should be rectangular, informing road users of names of towns, recreational and historical places, and the availability of facilities such as petrol stations, telephone, bus stops, so on and so forth. It can be either words or it can consist of symbols. Okay, and shall be erected according to the nature of the information. Example, bus stop sign should be erected at a particular bus stop. Okay, if it is a bus stop, then the sign should be at the particular bus stop. But for the gas station, you need to have the sign ahead at a suitable distance lah. Okay, informing road users that you have a petrol station up ahead. So this is the example of information signs. And then route markers. So route markers used to identify and mark all numbered highways. I tak ada gambar ni. Normally we refer to route markers using the numbers that we have on distance or directional signs. But there is a sign that is specifically constructed, or specifically erected just to show that you are on a certain route. And that signboard only have this. One signboard, and that it has the number here, a large signboard, okay, showing you the route marker, route number. So route markers are ordinarily incorporated as JKR logo, Federal Highway and State Highway on large directional guide signs and kilometer posts. They should be used on identification of roads, route confirmations, so on and so forth. On state highways, the route marker should be initiated with the same alphabet designated on car registration plate. Biasalah, that has been assigned for that particular state. So this, the dimension here, it fits into all signboards lah. Okay, it can be standalone, or it can also be incorporated into the signboards over here. Okay. So you can see here the angle and all that is already being outlined. It is interesting, all these old drawings from JKR are actually drawn by hand. When I was a student in the 90s, I still can see JKR draft person drawing by hand, drawing plans. Let's say you have plans for schools. The plans came in tracing papers, drawn using technical pens. So if you have any amendments, this draft person in that office will actually manually correct the drawings, okay, scrape off the lines and then draw a different dimension, something like that. Okay? And then they will print the blueprint for that plan. The reason it is being called as blueprint is that the drawing itself, the first drawing, is being drawn on tracing paper with technical pen. And then that tracing is being layered with another special paper. That paper, they roll together the tracing paper and the special paper and put it in a rectangular box, upright. At the bottom of that rectangular box, there is a bowl that they put ammonia. Okay, so they put ammonia in it, and the ammonia will evaporate. And oh, sorry, I forgot one step. I forgot one step. The tracing paper and the special paper goes into a machine. Okay, that it is rolling the paper. It rolls the tracing paper and the special paper together. So it's like it is scanning from the tracing into that special paper. Okay, and then they remove the tracing paper, put the special paper, roll it into that box, and put ammonia at the bottom. That ammonia will evaporate, and eventually that special paper will turn into blue. And you can see the lines in dark blue. So that is what we call as blueprint, because the plan is blue. So you can see the drawings being transferred from the original tracing paper onto that special paper. Okay, that's some history for you. It is still being used in the 90s. Okay. You know, in 1995, 1997, 1996, they have government office have just started using Microsoft Words and all that. Maybe some units are already using it earlier, but in JKR district, normally around mid 90s they have started using Microsoft Word. They just transfer. Even when I'm doing my assignments back then, I'm using typewriters. Okay, computers are very rare at that time and expensive. Okay. So this is about, okay, the second part of this lecture is about guardrails. So crash barriers should only be used where the likely damage or injury from hitting the barrier is less than hitting the hazard that it shields. So barriers are constructed to shield a hazard. Okay, let's say you have a tree that is very close to the edge of the road. Okay, I forgot the distance. There's a distance, minimum distance. If the tree is very close to the edge of the road, then you need to construct guardrail to prohibit vehicles from hitting the tree. So the design of the guardrail, it must be in such a way where if you hit the guardrail, the injury is less compared to if you are hitting the tree. Something like that lah. That is the principle. So safety barrier will reduce accident severity only for those conditions where striking the safety barrier is less severe than going down an embankment or striking a fixed object. So it also, on top of shielding a hazard, it is also used to make a barrier across an embankment. Safety barrier should only be installed where it is clear that accident severity will be reduced or there is a history of a run-off accident at this location. Meaning that there is a history that cars or vehicles goes down an embankment because the gap between the road and the embankment is not being guarded with barriers. Okay. So types of roadside hazards that warrant traffic barriers: rock cuts, rough rock cuts, or you have large boulders, permanent bodies of water, okay, where the depth is more than 2 feet. 2 meters. Okay, large line of trees where the diameter of the tree is 150 millimeter or more. Okay, if it is less than 150 millimeter, then it's okay. You don't have to have put barriers. Bridge piers and abutments and underpass. Better if I can have pictures for this. Okay, retaining walls and culvert head walls, and also culvert ends, gaps between twin bridges, narrowing of the shoulders, street lighting poles. Ya, ada gambar tak? Ada gambar lah pula. Sorry lah, I tak dapat gambar, tak letak gambar lagi. Sepatutnya better if I can have pictures lah kan. Alright. So the important part, let's say here, mana tadi? Bridge pier and abutment underpass. Okay, you need to protect the piers and abutments of bridges. Okay, so you need to have guardrails protecting that pier. But, sekejap kena cari juga kot. Tak ada gambar. Susah saya nak explain, tak ada gambar. Okay, tak apalah, saya try punya ni. Okay lah, for example, let's just imagine that this is the a pier. So this road is very close. In this case, we do not need the the guardrail barriers because it is at the stop sign, and then this is quite far. But if this pier is very close and this is the roadway, for example, you need to have guardrails over here. Of course, this is a large pier. It does not mean much if it is being hit, but we still need to protect it. So the guardrail here, it must be constructed at a correct distance between a correct distance lah. You need to have a correct distance between the guardrail and the pier, because the guardrail is being designed to bend. Okay, so it should bend around, forgot the value, if I'm not mistaken, about 1 meter. Okay, when it is being hit, that guardrail will bend 1 meter. So the distance between the bending of this guardrail and the pier must be enough so that the bending will not hit this pier, something like that. Okay. Again, this is a very large pier. If it has guardrail, the guardrail will, most likely it won't harm lah this pier. But imagine if this is just a pedestrian bridge where the column here is very small, so it needs to be protected with guardrail. But if the guardrail is being constructed just next to the pier, it does not have any meaning lah, because as soon as a vehicle hits the guardrail, it will bend and it will hit the pier. So you need to make sure when it bends, it does not hit the pier. The distance must be adequate, something like that. Okay, so warrant for a barrier. So this is how you measure let's say this one lah. Depends on the average traffic, average daily traffic and the median width. So these are the area that you need to have barriers. When the median is small, you can see you need the higher possibility lah that you're going to need barriers. Okay, depending on the average daily traffic. If the AADT is small, you also can avoid lah of the need to construct a barrier, something like that. The same case is correct for embankment. When you have a higher embankment, so the risk of vehicles going off that embankment is going to be higher. Okay, so this is the slope of the embankment. So what is the height of an embankment and what is the slope of the embankment? And beyond this curve over here, you should construct safety barrier. If the embankment is 3 meters high and the slope is very good, 1 to 2, then you do not need a safety barrier. But typically in Malaysia, if the embankment is, this is from RIM. But normally, the practice in Malaysia, if it is higher than 2 meters, it will the designer will put guardrails higher than 2 meters. It doesn't care about the slope or anything. If it is higher than 2 meters, it is better for you to just suggest that embankment needs guardrail, because it's safer for you. Yeah. As a designer, it's safer for you. Saya nak tunjuk gambar lagi ni. Ada. Okay. Barriers are traditionally developed and tested for passenger vehicles. They offer marginal protection when struck. Locations with poor geometrics, steep downgrades, substandard curves, all these areas may warrant a stronger railing. So instead of ordering the typical railing that is being in the standards, you can order uh, higher performance guardrails. So occupant risk values in terms of longitudinal and lateral uh, impact velocity, OIV, and ORA, occupant ride down accelerations, which are velocities and accelerations experienced by occupants. These are the variables that is being used to grade the safety performance of a guardrail. So these are, for example, if you have a apa nama ni, New Jersey barrier, concrete New Jersey barrier. Normally, it is being used where the width of the median is very narrow. If you have enough space, you should avoid using concrete barrier lah, because the deflection here is zero. If you hit it, it's not going anywhere. But normally, it is being used where the distance here is very small, and the risk of vehicles going into the other lanes is very high. So it might as well they hit this barrier instead of going off on the other lane. So you can construct this. If the distance is adequate, then you can use this semi-rigid barriers, W-beam guardrail. In this case here, this is actually ending of a ramp. So they do not put it as a barrier, concrete barriers lah. Although the distance is small. So the deflection is 1 meter. Okay, so this is the deflection. It is designed to deflect 1 meter. So here the maximum is 1.2 meter. So the distance of any object that is supposed to shield should be at least 1 meter lah. From this ni, ni. Sini pun dah tengok salah kan. Jadi sometimes it's very difficult lah to fit in. That's why you got vehicles running over these guardrails and then hitting this lamp post, lighting post. And then wire rope. Here the deflection is very high. I'm not sure whether it is still allowable or not to use wire rope. Last time, I think early 2000, they started using it, and then I've heard somewhere lah, people say that it has been made illegal, but nowadays I think it has been started. It is started being used again. But the important part is where the velocity is low lah for this wire rope. So you can see here, this is an embankment, okay, and it is obviously very high. But because the speed here is seen to be very slow, very slow lane. So it is, and the distance is also quite far. They say that it is okay for the designers to use wire rope. But if you ask me, the best bet is going to be semi-rigid barriers. Even nowadays, then the most recent design of W-beam, not W-beam lah, the guardrail here, it does not have this packer. You can see this is the column, and this is the packer, and this is the W-beam. Okay, this is typical design. Recently, they are starting to use the W-beam is connected directly to the column here. It does not have any packer. This design has not been approved by JKR, but I can see that some contractors have started using it. This is very dangerous because the distance between this and the amount of deflection when this guardrail is being hit has already been designed. Okay, so you need the distance. If this guardrail is attached directly to the post with no packer, then the deflection is going to be different, isn't it? So that to maybe lah, into a certain extent, can cause vehicles to behave differently. So it poses a risk for the designers actually to allow, and also the consultants to allow that type of design to be used, because it has not been approved by JKR. Whatever new product that you wish to use, you need to make sure that that product is being certified by JKR. If you simply use it, blindly use it, if anything goes wrong, then you are responsible for that. Okay. Oh, another thing, dia ada cerita lagi sini. Okay, tak apalah, nanti saya cerita. So the performance comparison between rigid barrier, semi barrier and flexible barrier. There is no action taken by JKR towards this. Those contractors, that's the problem. They are the one that is supervising, and somehow they think that it is safe. I'm not saying that it is not safe, because what I'm saying here, it is not being certified. As far as I'm concerned, it still has not been certified. That is a risk. And the contractors, if the design says like that, and the JKR says nothing, maybe they didn't notice or something like that. Okay. Then the risk, the responsibility actually lies on the designer and also the auditor. The auditor has a bigger risk lah, because they are supposed to audit the road, audit the design, and that design has been decided and being run on plans. If the auditor didn't say anything about it, then the responsibility partly, for a large portion actually, lies on the auditor's responsibility. So that's why if anything that I am involved with, or my boss involved in, we normally will say that at least in the meeting we will highlight that this design is not being certified yet. If they decide to proceed using that design, then that's their problem. Okay, we already highlight what's not according to the specification. Okay. So the thing here is how you try to get away not being responsible lah. We try to for designers, you need to design the best, and if the client say that you cannot use your design, then that's their fault. Okay, but you need to make sure on the meeting minutes, you need to make sure that it is clear that the directions come from the authority. Here's the trick lah. Here's the trick. If the authorities have a tendency to manipulate the meeting minutes, then you are in trouble. That's why you need to make sure every meeting minutes is being jotted down accurately, so that it is clear that it is no longer your responsibility. There is one project, actually the project I'm working right now. The authority does not even go through the meeting minutes. We normally take things for granted. Okay, if you are having some simple meetings, normally the main practice, the usual practice is go through the previous meeting minutes, and then somebody needs to certify whether the minutes are correct or not, isn't it? But normally people will just take for granted, okay, I suggest that it's accepted, or another one will support, okay, things are done. But in this type of things, you need to make sure that whatever is written in the minutes is correct, and it is not written against you. You need to check that, especially if the chairperson does not go through the meeting minutes when he or she start the meeting. Okay, you need to make sure whatever is written there, that is legal things, it is not written against you, because there is one incident where what is written in the minute is actually not what have been decided. It has been slightly twisted so that it is working in favor of the authority. So we as consultants will suffer if this kind of things continue lah. So we need to make sure. So don't take for granted reading meeting minutes. Those are the things that will cover your backside lah when you're working. Okay. Performance requirement fulfillment for NHRP. Ni dia punya ni lah. For test speed, you tengok test level, TL1, TL2, TL5. So these are the different specifications for guardrails. So it depends. So normally, I think, if I'm not mistaken, normally we are using something like this, TL2. So if it is deemed that you need a stronger guardrail, then you can choose for TL, higher TL lah. Okay. Alright. Comparison between old design and guideline of barriers. So this is there's another thing over here. We have two set specifications. One is from JKR, ATJ. Another one is RIM, Road Engineers Association of Malaysia. Basically, people in RIM are JKR people, but the specifications have slight differences. RIMs normally are very stringent in their specifications, and some of the things not covered in ATJ is covered in RIM. So it's good for you. Normally, consultants will have both lah. They will have both. So the table here shows the difference between the guidelines on the barriers, comparing between ATJ and RIM. So you can see that for ATJ, it only covers design procedure and embankment warrants. It does not cover clear zones. Okay, in audit, road safety audits, normally we will take into account clear zones because it's very important. So in that case, we will be using the RIM GL9/2006. So you can see here, RIMs also cover lots of other things lah, test level, containment standards, and performance capability. So this is an example how you use clear zone width. This is the width beyond the edge of your pavement that you need to make sure that it is clear. So this is the 85 percentile speed. This is 85 percentile speed is not your design speed. This is the actual speed of 85% of the traffic using that road. Okay. Normally we'll just choose using design speed lah. Okay. But actually what it means by 85th percentile speed is if you plot it as a cumulative curve, it is the speed that 85% of the vehicles using that road. Okay, the most common speed. There will always be that 15% that is higher. We do not take into account those people. We assume that those people are the crazy ones that normally will speed up higher than the speed limit. So we only cover 85th percentile speed. So if the 85th percentile speed is here, and this is the ADT, okay, annual average daily traffic. Let's say the 3,000 lah sini. So 100 speed, 100 kilometers per hour, 3,000 ADT. So the clear zone here is 7.5 meters. So this is a clear zone on a straight segment. 7.5 must be clear from any obstruction. And then here you have a clear zone on a radius. So the formula here, clear zone on the width on the curve is clear zone width on straight multiplied with a factor. This is the factor. So if your radius, let's say, is here 700, and this is the design speed of the curve, so the clear zone here is 1.15. So 1.15 you multiply with this factor that is considering the speed at 85 percentile speed, and the AADT here is 7.5. So 7.5 multiply with 1.15. So on curves, along the curves, you need to have more, wider clear zones. Okay, possible reasons for penetration of breach of guardrail. New vehicle center higher of gravity. So this is one problem. I'm not we should have a research lah on this. The height of the guardrail is between 700, is about 700 millimeters high. That height is being designed to take in, considering the height of cars. But nowadays there is a significant amount of SUV. So SUV, as you can see, that it is higher than the normal car. So the behavior when an SUV hits a guardrail will be different compared to a car. So the center of gravity is going to be different. So that is one possible reason lah. And also you can have the another reason is horizontal curvature coincide with a steep downgrade. Okay, it is cornering, it is a curve with a steep downgrade. So when you have completed your project, it is easier for me to talk to you, because you can see that what it means by horizontal curvature with a steep downgrade, isn't it? Okay, but if you just started doing your project, then maybe it is not very clear for you yet lah. So higher speed or higher angle of impact, vehicle impacting guardrail in a different manner from the testing conditions. For example, sliding sideways. Soil condition. This I'm not sure whether people really take into account or not. If the soil is very soft, then you'll need to use some different type of footing for the guardrail. But actually the guardrail goes very deep. The hole for the footing is very deep. It's about 2 meters, more than 1 meter lah. What you see is just a little bit of the small point. The rest of the guardrail is being planted inside, very deep. Side soil condition. Okay, inadequate lateral earth or soil support. Okay, here, or it can be this lah, improper placement leading to higher angle. So I'm not sure here what is protecting what. The guardrail is supposed to be protecting this TNB post, and now it seems that the post is actually protecting the guardrail. I'm not sure. These kind of things. Okay. Okay, so this is the height, post spacing more than 2 meters. The spacing cannot be more than 2 meters. If it is more, then the deflection is going to be different. Height is more or less 710, minimum 690. It cannot be shorter, it cannot be taller. If it is taller, the vehicle will go down the guardrail. If it is shorter, then the vehicle will go up and flying above the guardrail. So the research has shown that we need more or less 710 millimeters. Or it can that do not have adequate connecting bolts, or the use of W-beam, or the post different from the standard drawings that I mentioned lah. Okay. Another thing here, if this is an embankment, the distance between the post and the edge of the embankment is also important. If I'm not mistaken, it should be around 1 feet. This post cannot be erected right at the edge of the embankment. But in this case here, this is okay lah. This is just a drain kan, V-drain. Let's just imagine that this is an embankment 2 meters high. So you cannot have this guardrail here. It needs to be 30 millimeters from the edge of the embankment to make sure that it has adequate support behind the guardrail. that you have enough soil, enough earth behind to support this guardrail. Okay. So this is the, okay, you can see lah, less than 600, very short guardrail, and the spacing here is more than 2 meters. This kind of things, you just imagine lah, if the contractors the spacing, they just take what, 1 feet per spacing, per gap. How many posts can they save? That's a lot. That's quite a lot, you know. But the height here, normally is construction error. Okay, you need to make sure that it is being raised. And then they have substandard barrier endings. So this is the fishtail type. It is no longer being allowed. You can see here this type of design being used on old roads lah. Okay, the one that we should be using nowadays is the folding part. So the end here folds and being reverted on the back of this guardrail. This one is no longer being permitted. Texas twist, this also is very frequent. In fact, this picture here I took in 2019. Okay, the designer is not aware that this design is no longer being allowed, because there are records where vehicles hit this, and this ending here becomes a flying ramp. So the vehicles hit it, goes up, and the cars end up flying due to the angle of this end treatment. So it is no longer being allowed. Okay. Normally for this kind of things, we need crash cushions lah. Crash cushions over here. I tak ada gambar je. And here the problem is the connection between the guardrail and the jersey barrier. This is completely wrong. I don't know where they got this design. It is, you see, on the other side, this is wrong, this is wrong. So the correct design is that this jersey barrier must have a slot so that this guardrail goes into that barrier and it is being bolted there, inside that slot. So it is not being flattened and then bolted here. It must have a slot. It's like, macam mana it has a section cut away section. So this guardrail goes into the barrier. Okay, so these kind of things I have commented, okay, up until today. From 2019, I've said this is wrong, this is wrong. I'm not sure lah, but as far as I'm concerned, 2020 I came again here. This design is still on the road lah. Ni nak cerita apa? Ni, this is the slot what I'm talking about. Okay, it should be like this, connected into the barrier. And this is a crash cushion. Ni yang cakap tadi. The distance, if this is a guardrail, so the distance between this guardrail and the embankment must be adequate. On top of that, you can have a crash cushion. Okay. This crash cushion is to prohibit vehicles from colliding head-on to the pier lah. Normally, this type of one crash cushion here, the cost is around 30 to 40,000 ringgit. It's a good design like this, 40,000 ringgit. But it does not mean that it will save the driver. My brother-in-law have an accident. He crashed towards one of this crash cushion in LDP. Still, the impact is very hard, that he smashed his head to the side of the car. His eyeballs come out. Just imagine if there is no crash cushion, then it's a completely different story lah. Even if you hit this cushion, quote unquote cushion, the impact is still very high. Okay, he got smashed. And then when people come, he is holding his eyeball because coming out of the eye. Okay. Conclusions. Other factors will predominate. The designers should use judgment to decide whether a barrier should be installed. although it costs more, but apa tu, it pays lah to have to spend extra money on safety, kan? Especially when you are the designer. So safety barriers should only be installed when their absence will likely cause more severe injuries. Safety barriers are not meant to prevent accidents, to minimize, but they minimize. This is what I mentioned by my brothers-in-law's incident lah. It is not meant to prevent, but to minimize injuries. But the minimize is not mean that you will be surviving unscathed. Okay, just the injury is less, but he still lose his eye lah. Engineering judgment should always be used in interpreting various tables, and never ever use a barrier that has not been fully crash tested to internationally accepted to be actually internationally accepted practices, as we will not know its performance under impact. I kena ingat kat sini. This is the example of a plan lah, where it shows the signboards, the layout of the signboards, and then here I think the lines kan ada tulis tak? Lines tak ada kat sini. These are all for signboards, signs. Okay, any questions?
Doctor, I
Yes.
have one question. So what's your opinion regarding the roller guardrail? I believe I have seen roller guardrail in Malaysia, but then I think there's no requirement on roller guardrail in ATJ yet. So what's your opinion?
Roller or rope? Wire rope?
Roller.
Oh, roller.
Yeah.
That you need to check with the authority. Sometimes it is not in the specification, but they have a circular being written by the ketua pengarah lah. Basically, they certify it, the use of it, and they distribute to all JD, JKR daerah, and all of JKR branches. If they have that, then it's okay. I'm not sure whether it is, if it is certified to be safe, then it's safe lah. I'm not sure. I think it's already being certified lah, because the use is quite a lot nowadays, isn't it? That you need to actually see the letter from the JKR ketua pengarah.
Okay, doctor. Thank you.
So even if it is not in the ATJ, it doesn't mean that it is not being certified. Normally, it will the designer will have the attachment lah. We will be using this design, and this design has been certified by JKR, and they show the letter, and then that is okay. Okay, if there is no question, I'll go to your project. Next week is your project presentation, week 12. You need to submit before the class begins at 10 a.m. Individual submission. So each project, each group will have 2 options available from each of group member, and you need to explain both design and explain why do you pick which option do you pick lah. Okay, you need to explain your justifications. However, every group member must have their design ready, because in the Q&A session, I could point out to any of the group members and ask them to show their design and explain their design. Okay, so everybody must have their design ready online, so that if I call up your name, you can show your design to me. So you have, I forgot how many groups that you have. So I will go one by one lah, from group 1 to group, I think group 10 or 12, something like that. So each group will take about 10 minutes. About 10 minutes. Of course, it's going to take more, but I estimated it to be around 10 minutes. if it ends earlier than 10 minutes, then I will call for the next group to be online. So, okay, it is up to you. Do you want to watch your friends to present, or do you want to apa nama? I think better kot kan. Tapi nanti kan semua soalan saya you dah tahu kan. Better group by group lah. Group by group. Tapi sama aja you boleh WhatsApp kawan you kan. Okay, tak apa. So group by group, starting from the first group, okay, 10 AM to 10:10. And then 10:10 to 10:20, something like that. Second group, third group, until we finish off all of the groups. Okay? I hope it is clear.
Doctor,
Yes.
we need to present a slides or just present our report?
Easier you just present the report lah. But make sure it's easy for me to go through. Kan? Kalau you punya slide kan, you punya report nanti tulisan pun saya tak boleh nak nampak, payah juga. Pilih yang clear. Okay. Any more questions? Okay.
No question for me, Doctor.
Alright, thank you very much. If there is no more questions, I'll end the lecture here. I'll see you next week for your presentation. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor.
Welcome. Welcome.
Okay, Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you, Doctor.
Welcome.